So if you don't know what GitFlow is, you're about to learn today. I'm going to explain the Git code branching strategy called GitFlow. So first, you got to know what source control is. You got to know what Git is. So source control is a way to store and manage every modification to your code. It stores a history of your changes with certain versions, and if you need to go back to a particular version, you can, if you break something, for instance. It also provides the ability for individuals or teams to create separate derivatives, or what's called branches of code, that they later can use to merge back into the main code, or they can merge into other branches. And what Git is just the most widely used modern version control system out there that exists. So what is GitFlow exactly? So GitFlow is just an abstract strategy for what branches you should try to have during development. Whether you're an individual or working on a team, it helps you to manage, integrate, and release the code effectively. It gives you a framework of when and how to branch your code. GitFlow is better suited for teams with like long planned release cycles, and less suited for teams that are using like continuous deployment, where they're doing like automatic releases or very, very quick releases. So since GitFlow is a branching strategy, what branches should you have? Well, first you got to start with a main branch or master branch, you could call it, and you have to start with a develop branch. So the main branch stores the official release history. That branch has every release version of your code, and it has all the commits that go into it. Next is the develop branch, which is also called an integration branch for all the feature branches. So every time you work on a feature or your teammate, when they're done with those features, they're going to merge them back into the develop branch in order to integrate those features together. So as you can see here, you have your main branch with all the versions here, and you have this side branch where you're doing work in between each version. So feature branches. Feature branches, every time there's a new feature or fix, it should be started in its own feature branch, and the develop branch should be used as the branch that those features come from. So if you see here, the green feature branches are being started from the purple develop branches. And so when a feature is completed, it's merged back into the purple, which is the develop branch. So this is where you or your teammates will be working on features, and then you will merge them and integrate them together. But you'll work on your features in isolation based on a derivative of the develop branch. Next is release branches. So after you've done a set of features and fixes, now it's time for a release. The release gets created from the develop branch because that's where everything's been integrated for that deployment cycle. At this point, you want to test your release branch. While you're testing, you don't want to add any new features at this point. You just want to make sure that there are no regression issues and that everything is working as expected. So after deployment, the release branches merge down into the main and develop branches. When it gets merged down to the main branch, now you have a new version here like you have in the light blue. And as you can see here, your release branch came from your develop branch at a certain point where you were ready to do a release. Lastly is hotfix branches. So what happens when you have an issue in one of your releases here in the light blue? Well, you can create a hotfix branch here in the orange, basically to fix that issue that is in your production environment. You can branch from one of your versions, and then you can fix it, and then once you're done and you've deployed it and tested it, you can merge it back and create a new version based off of the hotfix. You also would need to merge this into your develop branch as well, because that's your main branch where you're working from. You need to sync everything up at that point. So to recap, you start with the main branch where you have all your versions. That's kind of like your core of what's going on with your application over time. Then you have a develop branch that you work on as a team or individual. You merge all your features together in. And then you have feature branches when you have a fix or a bug to do during a release cycle that you're just basically working on isolated changes in, and you merge those back into develop. And then when you're ready to deploy, you create a release branch that you just test and make sure it's working. After you're done, you merge that down into develop, and you also create a new version on the main. You merge it back into main to have a new version on that line as well. And then lastly, if you have some sort of emergency, you need a hotfix, you can break off from your main released version so that you know that you're not changing anything else except that release version. Fix it and then merge it into develop, and also merge it back into the main to create a new version. So when should you use GitFlow? You should use it in a company where you have routine developments that are planned over fixed development cycles, where multiple releases may need to get worked on, or multiple trains of code need to be worked on at the same time. It helps manage that. When should you not use GitFlow? Well, if you're in a true continuous delivery or continuous deployment scenarios where you have very short-lived feature branches and you're just merging back into a single branch and you're deploying very quickly, you don't have these long-lived branches that can get out of sync with your team, then you probably don't need to use GitFlow. It's probably overkill, especially if you have a good testing and you're doing quick releases. Every time you fix a feature, you're releasing it, then you don't really need GitFlow. It's when you have these big releases with multiple fixes and features in them that GitFlow kind of plays out well. So I hope that helps. I hope this was helpful to people. Please like, comment, share, and save, and let me know what you think. Let's see you in the next video. Appreciate it.